What is going on, everybody? And this is going to be my review for Mad Max, which is available on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the PC. Now, earlier this year, a movie was released called Mad Max Fury Road, which got a lot of critical acclaim. And because that movie got a lot of critical acclaim, people got really excited for the upcoming Mad Max game. And what also got people excited about the game is that the game is not following any of the Mad Max movie storylines. It's going to be set in the universe, but the developers can basically write their own story and play with the universe and get creative. Now, did they do that in this game? Were they able to actually achieve this creativity and make a fun, enjoyable game for us all? So, let's find out. First off, let's talk about how well the game looks and how well does the game actually perform. The game looks really good. When you play the game, it looks like you're in a barren wasteland. It feels like you're in a barren wasteland. You're in a world after a huge disaster struck. You're in a world that is new from what we see the world as. And when you're going around and you're going to all these scavenging locations and you're finding scrap and other tools that you need for your adventure, you also come across historical artifacts. And when you look at these pictures, a lot of it is pictures from the world as we see. But to the game universe, that was the past. And when you look at these pictures and then you hear Max's commentary afterward, it really gives you that sense of feeling of that's what the world used to be, but this is what the world is now. And the game does a great job of showing that to you. And I would also like to point out that it's a very exhilarating feeling when you come across your very first dust storm. There's really no other way to explain it. You pretty much have to experience it for yourself, but the game does a great job of basically showing off the Mad Max universe. It does a great job of that. Now, as for actual performance, it does a really good job. I experienced very little pop-in when playing this game, which actually says a lot for an open world game, because open world games tend to have that pop-in effect when you're playing them. But I do have to admit there were times when the frame rate would drop randomly. And I say randomly because it would just do it. Like, nothing was happening on the screen, it would just drop. Now, it did not drop to unplayable levels, but I do have to point out that it did drop. Now, I don't know if that is indicative of the PS4 version, because that is a version I did play. I don't know if this game runs better on the Xbox One or if it has these issues on the PC. But I'm just pointing it out that it did happen to me, and it is noticeable. But it doesn't happen constantly. So I really wouldn't worry about that unless you're just a huge frame rate junkie. Then it shouldn't really bother you, and it's not that big of an issue. Alright, now let's quickly go over the story and plot of Mad Max. Now, when I say quickly, there's a reason I'm using that word. Because to me, there really isn't that much to say. To me, the main story of this game just felt like padding. Like it was just there to exist. Just to say that there is a main story. Because when I was playing the main story of this game, I didn't feel like I was playing a main story. Because most of the main story quests in this game are just basically fetch quests. You go to a stronghold, and you talk to the stronghold leader, and it's basically, go get this for me, and in return we'll let you upgrade your car here. And then you do it again, and 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 you do it again. At every single stronghold. There's really no variation, there's no change up, it's just the same thing over and over again, I did not feel like I was playing a main story. There weren't any real interesting characters that you came across and that had character development. There isn't anyone that you care about, really. To me, it just feels like you're playing the main story just because you have to do it to progress the game to get to the next area. Not because you want to do it, or at least that's how I felt. Now, honestly, this is kind of par for the course for these type of open world action games, because usually the story takes a backseat in these types of games, because I played Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas and all the other later games. I played Elder Scrolls Skyrim, which all had the same type of commonality. Huge open world, lots of side content, lots of places to explore, lots of things to do, but an average or below average main quest line. Honestly, I think these developers are more focused on working on other areas more than a main story of these type of games, because we tend to get sidetracked a lot by the overwhelming amount of content that's in these type of games. So I guess they figure, oh, well, let's not really work that hard on a main story because most people aren't really going to pay attention to it, and they're only going to do it when they've run out of other stuff to do. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not using that as an excuse for this. I still think you can still do a decent story in these type of games while having all this other stuff to do. And that really wasn't executed well here, in my opinion. So don't take that as me trying to defend a developer doing this. But to me, it's par for the course for these type of games, because the developer is more focused on the actual world we get to play around in and the overall gameplay of the game. Which leads me into talking about where this game really shines. The best way to describe Mad Max's gameplay is that it's pretty much Grand Theft Auto with Batman Arkham melee combat. That's pretty much the best way to describe this game. Now, before I continue into talking about the different categories of the gameplay, I would just like to say that when you first play this game, the controls are a little weird. The button layout is a lot different from what we're used to in these type of games, and at first it might be a struggle when you play in the game, or at least it was for me. It took me a while to get used to the button layouts and what you had to do in each different situation, but I did eventually get used to it. But I'm just saying, at first it might be a little weird, I guess is the best way to describe it, because the control layout is a lot different from what we're used to in these type of action games. So the car handling in this game is kind of hit or miss. To me, a lot of times when you're driving the car around, you're kind of slipping and sliding like you're on ice. Now, I'm guessing they wanted to try and go for a more realistic approach, since a lot of times you're not really driving on solid ground. You're driving in sand a lot and up rocks and all this other different stuff. So I'm not saying it's really a bad thing, but it might become annoying to you when you're driving around and you're trying to evade enemy cars and you're slipping and sliding, but the enemy cars are not slipping and sliding. They just ram right into you with perfect accuracy. It can become annoying after a while, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. The actual third-person shooting in this game it's just there, really. You don't really do it that often, or at least I didn't. It's just really there in just the certain situations that you need to do it. And there really isn't much to really say about the third-person shooting aspect of this game. Now, let's talk about the most fun part of this game, and that is the melee combat. The melee combat in this game is so much freaking fun. When you melee combat in this game, you feel like you're playing a Batman Arkham game. That combat system is almost exactly the same as in those games. Even down to the point where it seems like the parry button is just... the hit detection for the parry button is off. Like, you hit the button and it still doesn't counter, or at least it did for me. I would constantly hit the counter button and it wouldn't counter. I would just go... I would always say, I hit triangle! I've said that countless times while playing this game. But the melee combat is fun as hell. There are so many different combat moves that Max has that never makes melee combat feel like you're doing the same old, same old. It never gets old, it never gets tiring, and there's so much fun stuff you can do in melee combat. And I don't know what Max did in this game, but I'm guessing Max used to be a wrestling fan, because he does a lot of wrestling moves. Like, he does the snowplow, which was former WWE wrestler Al Snow's old finishing move. He's done a clothesline from hell. I've seen him do John Cena's attitude adjustment. I've seen him do a power bomb, a German suplex. He's done a lot of grappling wrestling moves in this game. It's fun. And there's just so much to do with the melee combat. It's always fun. I put 50 plus hours in this game, and every time I was involved in melee combat, it never got old for me. And a lot of times it was so much fun, I would avoid killing enemies other ways just to melee combat them because it's so much fun. And not just that, there's also lots of weapons you can pick up. None of them really do anything different. All the melee weapons in this game just do the exact same thing. So, there really isn't much to say about that. But, yeah, melee combat is really where this game shines. And also, where this game also shines is the amount of different vehicles that are in this game. There are so many different types of vehicles that you can drive around in. It's almost like you go out of your way to want to add vehicles to your vehicle collection in this game. And a lot of them do different things. Like, of course, you got your main car that has all these specific abilities, but then some enemy cars have abilities that your main car doesn't have. Like, there was an enemy car that shot fire from its tailpipe. There was one that shot landmines out of the back. It's a lot of fun. Alright, now for my final thoughts on Mad Max. To me, despite the flaws that this game does have, I still highly recommend this game if you're into open world games, if you're into action games, if you like the Mad Max universe. I think you will really enjoy this game. And it's honestly, to me, it's a shame that this game will suffer in sales, because for some reason, whoever, I guess it was WB, whoever was in charge of picking the release date for this game, they decided to pick the same day that Metal Gear Solid 5 came out. Now, Metal Gear Solid is a proven franchise, and the average gamer, when going to buy a new game, they will probably pick the proven franchise over a new IP. And I think this game's sales will suffer because of that. And it's really a damn shame, because this game is really good. And this game shows the potential of what this developer, Avalanche, can do with the Mad Max universe and the series if they happen to get a sequel out of this. I hope to see a sequel of this game. I want to see improvements to the story. I want to see more cars. I want to see maybe possible... Honestly, I would be interested to see some multiplayer racing in this universe. I think that could be pretty fun. Like vehicle combat. Kind of like Twisted Metal. I want to see more additions to the melee combat. More moves. So there's a lot of potential here for an amazing sequel. And I highly recommend this game if you have the money to pick this up. Now, if you don't, then definitely wait for a sale. However, if you're not really into open world games with repetitive side content, if you're more of a gamer that's interested in a story focused game, then I can't recommend this game, because this game isn't really focused on actual plot at all. It's more about the gameplay and the actual world itself to play around in. So, alright, let me know what you thought about this review. Let me know what you think about Mad Max if you have the game. So, alright, until next time, have a good one.